Hello everybody, welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 BMW Championship DFS Tactics show. We have a lot to get into, of course, the updated forecast, the projected ownerships for all 50 players this week at Castle Pines, and I've got quite a unique take this week in terms of the lineups that I'm building. I am fading an entire price range. So we'll get into all that. You'll want to stick around to the end of the show to see what area of the price board I am just completely avoiding this week. We have a lot to cover. I want to hear from you all, so let's get right into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter golf gambler and a much better golf DFS player. Go check out fantasynational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where normally I place research every Monday afternoon regarding the tournament of the week. Generally, it's around patterns of previous winners, some course information, the players in the field that week who also fit the pattern of previous winners, but haven't done that the past couple of weeks with the St. Jude only being 1 year or at least in terms of its current format, and of course this week with a new course, no prior history or whatever, at least in terms of the current format, but that will return next week for East Lake. But if you want to see the weekly research that I usually do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and the top player usage in the DFS contest I play that comes out every Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show. So that'll be out over on X later this evening. If you want to see that, go give me a follow over at X. And then finally, for social media, Gabe's handle is in the description. He writes a fantastic article called The Fringe. It's a great way to start your week of preparation. He also provides you his own version of recent form and course history throughout the week. We've worked together now for a couple of years. It's been fantastic working together with him. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And speaking of, if you are a subscriber to his article, which is free to do, you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat after the show this evening and every Wednesday evening, as he is gracious enough to host me over there. He hosts his own chat over on Substack. It's very informative, very fun, entertaining, a lot of information getting passed around as well. We talk everything DFS. We talk about our favorite areas of the price board, players we're staying away from, who we're pivoting to, game theory, all of that. So if you are not a subscriber to his article, you really are missing out. I suggest you go do that and show him some support. Follow him over on social media. Again, his handle is in the description. Finally, for this intro, we are live. Chat's open. I want to hear from you all. In addition to the poll question, which I will put up momentarily right after the intro, I want to hear from you all. Who is your top play this week? Who do you think wins? Who are you staying away from? How many players do you think play their way in or out of East Lake next week? All of that. So feel free to jump in chat, or if you are not able to catch the show live, put it in the comments. Would love to hear your all's take, the community's views this week for the BMW. So let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2024 BMW Championship. And we start, as we always do, on a Wednesday evening over at the super forecast. I almost said extended super forecast for the tournament. Of course, this is Castle Pines. Let me get everything situated here. And the poll question for this week. I made a slight mention of how, at least I felt, that the price board was pretty difficult this week. With 7 players in the 5 digits, no 5K range, I felt that the price board was difficult, but fair, but difficult this week. So the question revolves around that. How many 6Ks are you willing to put in the same lineup this week? Not that is in your player pool, but actually put them into the same lineup. So let me rephrase that question, or at least add a word there, and I will post that. How many 6Ks are you willing to put in the same lineup this week? 0. Are you building balanced lineups this week? You're going to play 1 and make it a standard stars and scrubs. You willing to play 2 and trying to get some uniqueness? Or are you going super stars and scrubs and willing to do 3 or more? So we'd love to hear the community's thoughts on that question as we move throughout the evening. And of course, I will give you my answer at the end of the show. We turn our attention to the super forecast for Castle Pines, Castle Rock, Colorado. Very little wind. Maybe a pop-up thunderstorm late in the afternoon tomorrow, but probably should not affect play, would be my guess, unless this thunderstorm rolls in a little earlier. But, very little wind for Castle Pines tomorrow. Friday, much the same. I mean, a little bit of some gusty breezes Friday morning, but with only 50 players, they are going out in one continuous wave. No real wave advantage. This is a no-cut event anyway. So not a whole lot of wind in the forecast for Castle Pines. And if we zoom out, take a look at Saturday. Again, maybe a pop-up thunderstorm Saturday, as you can see, much like on Thursday. The wind increases in the afternoon there. Now Sunday does look like it could be fairly windy, so we would have to monitor that. But honestly, I'm not going to factor in any wind this week, especially seeing Thursday and Friday have very, very little wind. So there's a look at the super forecast for Castle Pines. We'll move to Fantasy National and do a quick review here. And of course, I forgot to unstar the players since I was grabbing the up to the second projected ownerships, which again, thanks to Gabe, he shared his sources projected ownerships. So when we start going through the price board, we will have 2 sources to talk about Fantasy National, of course, Gabe's source. But in terms of review, really the only thing that I think is going to be consistent from the week, this is a Jack Nicklaus design. There's been a lot of talk about how this is fairly similar to Muirfield, with the obvious exception of the altitude. So in the past 2 years, on Jack Nicklaus designs, our top performers in the field this week are Scotty, Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa, Xander, Rory, Sepp Straka, Tony Finau, Hideki, Eric Cole, and Matt Fitzpatrick. The bottom 10 in terms of performance at Jack Nicklaus designs: Cam Davis, Matthew Pavone, it's only 5 rounds. Aaron Rai, Cam Young, Tom Hoagie, Taylor Pendrith, Akshay Bhatia, Brian Harmon, Stefan Yeager, and Will Zalatoris. Those are your bottom 10 in terms of performance at Jack Nicklaus Designs. Hey, good evening, Pete. Thanks for jumping in chat. Always appreciated. Hopefully you've had a good week. Ready for the penultimate event for the PGA Tour, the BMW Championship. Won't be able to type much. That is absolutely fine. I'm just very appreciative that you take time out of your day to jump in chat. As always, you've been a long-time supporter of the channel, so it is good to see you this evening. Drive safely wherever you are heading. The only other thing that I think we're going to take a quick recap or view of. It's not even a recap. It's a view. Quick overview. The more I thought about it, and the more that forecast kind of stabilized, the more I thought that birdies are going to be in bunches this week. Even though the yardage is gaudy on the scorecard, being over 100 yards, at altitude with very little wind, these are professionals. They are going, the top 50 professionals at the PGA Tour, they're going to score. They're going to score a lot this week. At least I feel that way. giving you a little foreshadowing in terms of the mixed condition model. So when rounds have been easy relative to par the past 2 years, your top performers have been Xander, Scotty, Colin Morikawa, Davis Thompson, Ludwig Aubert, Victor Hovland, Patrick Cantlay, Justin Thomas, Rory, and Sungjae. Those are your top 10 in terms of total performance when rounds have been easy. The players who have not played well when rounds have been easy: Max Homa, Cam Davis, Jason Day, Stephan Jaeger, Cam Young, Nick Dunlap. A little bit suspect of that, considering he won the Amex. He won the Barracuda, which the Barracuda isn't in here. That's always very easy because that modified stable format just rewards aggression. You see, easy has been his best, per difficulty in his small time on the PGA Tour. So he just hasn't been as good as some of these others. But Nick Dunlap has shown he has played well when it's easy. Hideki, Pavone, Matt Fitzpatrick, Chris Kirk, and Tony Finau is your bottom 10 in terms of total performance when rounds have been easy the past couple of years. I know we didn't talk about that a whole lot. I mentioned Sunday and Monday that I wasn't terribly confident in the easy relative to par filter. But again, going from Monday night with a full day yesterday and more of the same today with that forecast stabilizing, the more I thought about it, I just feel like the winning scores are going to be, or the scores are going to be pretty good. I would not be surprised to see a winning score in the mid-20s, 23, 24, somewhere around there. Would not be surprised at that. So with that, I think that's a pretty good segue to start looking into the mixed condition model that I have made for Castle Pines this week. And a unique challenge, considering the course has not been seen since 2006. So very few players played the International and are, one, still playing, two, playing in this field. I know Adam Scott and Jason Day played in the International all those years ago, but very, very few players. And in fact, Fantasy National doesn't have the International loaded going so far back. They go back all the way to 2012, not 2006. So a unique challenge this week, but one I think we're going to be up to the task for. So we start the mixed condition model this week with 10% and off the tee. And I toyed around thinking about different filters to put in here. I definitely wanted to put a good amount of off the tee because I think accuracy is going to be a premium. It is at Jack's Place. But another thing about Muirfield is distance does help. And while everybody's going to have more distance this week, obviously with the altitude, having more distance than your competitors is probably going to help a little bit. And I toyed with the easy to par filter. I toyed with the long rough filter. I even looked at off the tee on Jack Nicklaus Designs. I didn't like that all that much because it was really narrowed down to Muirfield and Valhalla, so not a big sample size at all. We're just looking at off the tee in the past 3 months or 24 rounds. Who is in good form off the tee at the moment coming into the week? 10% off the tee, 25% in approach. We saw this with WGC Mexico at Chapultepec. Muirfield emphasizes approach play. Jack's Places usually do. Especially when we have a new course that is my default, is to increase the amount of approach play or approach weight in the mixed condition model. So 25%, you could argue that it might be heavy, but I actually think approach play is going to be that important this week. Being able to adjust yardages and numbers due to the altitude and the constant elevation changes, uphill, downhill, all that. So a lot of calculations going into play this week. I want to see who is hitting their irons the best. So 25% approach. 5% around the green, and the more that I thought that this was going to be easy, the less comfortable I felt with around the green. I did end up keeping it in the mixed condition model because these greens are slightly smaller than tour average and they are pretty complex. But if I truly believe that this is going to be easy, I don't think many players are going to be having to rely around the green. I kept it at 5%, and I kept it in there also because, we just don't know for sure. This could play difficult, but I am definitely of the mindset this is going to be easy and that around the green won't be much of a factor at all. So, if anything, I would argue to take this out and put the 5% elsewhere. But I'm kind of playing it safe, if you will, keeping around the green in the mixed condition model. 10% putting in the last 2 years, and you see this filter, multiple courses. This is the Bent and Poa annua filter. So this is Detroit, Oakdale, Silverado, and TBC River Highlands. The 4 courses, 3 consistent and 1 that was played last year on Bent and Poa annua. My guess is that these are going to be fast, maybe even lightning. And I'm taking that assumption based on the stent meter reading that was given in the GCSAA tournament fact sheet at 13. That is pushing lightning. So these are going to be pretty darn fast greens. Memorial, Muirfield is always lightning fast. Jack really wants to challenge players on the greens. So 10% putting on Bent and Poa annua. 15% good drives gained when the rough is long. Now these fairways are wide by yardage, width-wise, I should say. So they're forgiving in that regard, but there's a lot of sloping and undulation in the fairways, going uphill, downhill. You're traversing through the Rocky Mountains, so they are going to play smaller. And that rough is listed at 4 inches thick. The rough at Muirfield is always very, very challenging to play out of. So I did want to put the emphasis on accuracy as opposed to distance this week. 15% good drives gained, so the players are at least hitting the fairway, or they are adept enough at hitting the green in regulation from the rough or native area in some courses cases, but here obviously would be rough. 15% good drives gained, and you'll notice that I didn't put anything in greens or sand saves. I talked about it a little bit Monday night. I thought about putting some greens, but I did not want to overemphasize it. And that's why I have kind of an extra 5% really in the good drives gained. I felt like that was enough focus on accuracy and precision to not have to include greens. 5% opportunities gained when rounds are easy. 15% birdies or better gained when rounds are easy. I need to go this way. Try to get my head out of the way for you all. Again, I talked about how I think this is going to be easy this week. So I want to see the players who give themselves, opportunities, but really, mostly, who just scores. Who scores well, particularly when it's easy, but who just scores well. If I think the winning score is going to be 23, 24, 25 under, guys are going to have to make 27, 28, 29 birdies or better to give themselves a chance at winning. So there's going to have to be a lot of birdies. So I wanted to really emphasize who can go low. And the last facet of the mixed condition model, you'll notice I don't have any par 3 or par 4 scoring, which I'm a little, hesitant about. I'm not terribly confident in it. But there are 4 par 5s. And if this is going to play easy, I would imagine they're going to yield some eagles as well. So par 5 scoring in the past 24 rounds or 3 months. Who takes advantage of par 5s? Who takes advantage of the best scoring opportunities? 15% in par 5s. So there's a look at the mixed condition model that I have for the BMW Championship this week. Areas where I could be weak, if par 3s matter here at Castle Pines, if par 4s matter here at Castle Pines, or, a particular range especially. If around the green doesn't matter, I would tend to think it's not going to. The biggest thing is if this does not play easy, I will just be pretty cold too. I think this is going to be easy, but I will be cold if this does not play easy. If approach doesn't matter that much, or if off the tee matters more, etc. Maybe distance could matter a little bit more, but those are some areas where I might be weak this week if the tournament doesn't play as I expect it to, sitting here on a Wednesday evening. But there's a look at the mixed condition model. We will now go to Microsoft Excel, the reveal of my rankings. And I'm going to be honest with you, I hate my rankings this week. I don't know how many pundits will tell you that, but just due to the way I configure my rankings, I really don't like them this week. And that's why I think it's going to be pretty important we go through the price board and talk about some potential pivots and all that. For your information, if you're a returning viewer, for your information, if you are a new viewer, as a reminder, if you are a returning viewer, I think I screw that up every single time. I'll eventually get it, maybe. My rankings are based usually on 3 criteria. The FNGC rank, which is a straight numerical ranking from Fantasy National based on the mixed condition model we just talked about, the metrics and the percentages that was loaded. There's a missing piece here in my rankings. Generally, what I call course value, which is a course history calculation. Council Blinds doesn't have any course history, not back to 2006. So that is just completely blank this week. So this week there are only 2 facets or criteria in my rankings. And the third is projected ownership, and these are projected ownerships per Fantasy National. But we are playing DFS. We're trying to find unique options, so projected ownership is also a factor in my rankings. And with such a small field, I bumped the importance of projected ownership much higher than what I normally put it at because of the small field. So with that explanation, I should say, my rankings go as such for the BMW this week. My number 1 player is Aaron Rai. I don't like that. But based on the calculation, he was second, by the numbers, and his ownership isn't so high that he's getting hurt. Aaron Rai is my number 1 player. Rory is second. Sung Jae is third, getting propped up by his uniqueness. Eric Cole, 6,500 Eric Cole, fourth. Colin Morikawa, fifth. Scotty, not even in my top 5. Scotty, sixth. Tommy, Shane Lowry, Davis Thompson, and Ludwig Aubert round out my top 10. One of the reasons why I don't like my rankings this week is because we are really just kind of focused on this ownership. We're trying to find the most unique options that we can this week. That's why players like Shane Lowry, who was 14th by the numbers, so wasn't terrible, but is really rising in my rankings due to his uniqueness. Only 8% projected ownership for Fantasy National. Same as going for Sung Jae. But a lot of these others, are pretty reasonable. As much as I don't like Aaron Rai being number 1 in my rankings, it's hard to argue against it because he has been playing so well lately, and his ownership isn't so prohibitive. Rory's getting helped by the fact that he is a unique option in the 10Ks. Eric Cole has been playing very, very well, despite the fact that he is really bad off the tee. Like, the irons have been really good. He scores. We've talked about this for the last 2 weeks, why I've been so high on Eric Cole. He just scores. He gets bunches of birdies. He'll get some bogeys, but he gets bunches of birdies. Second in birdies or better gained. First in par 5s, which you're going to have to take advantage of this week. So a lot to like with Eric Cole. Morikawa being 5th, I understand it, but I'm actually a lot lower on Morikawa than what this would suggest. Scheffler really just getting hurt by the fact that he is the second most projected owned player. Surprisingly, only second per Fantasy National. But, number one on several metrics. Not a bad statistic across here. You see he was number one analytically. Again, he's just getting hurt by the fact that his ownership is so high, or projected ownership is so high. Tommy's fine. Talked about Shane Lowry. Davis Thompson's a little bit of a surprise, being 11th by the numbers, and his ownership isn't, astronomically high, because his irons haven't been great recently. His game has all been around the green, and I have some doubts that whether around the green is going to matter. But he's also been very good off the tee. He's decent on this surface, so I can understand it, but I'm not as high on Davis Thompson. And Obear is just very solid. So there's a look at my top 10, at least by the number crunching. When we get into the price board, I'll explain how I really don't agree with a lot of my top 10. But speaking of, let's go ahead and sort on the price board, get a feel for where members at Fantasy National and, per Gabe's source, where a lot of our fellow contestants seem to be going on the areas of the price board and ways we can maneuver around them. So as I alluded to, in the 5 digits, in the 10Ks, we have 7 players. Scotty is at 12-3. Xander's at 11-1. Rory at 10-8. Hideki at 10-5. Hovland at 10-4. Morikawa at 10-1. Ludwig Obear at 10,000 even. 7 players in the 5 digits. That's partially why I think this was very difficult, or a very difficult price board to navigate. You see, per Fantasy National, Scotty's getting a whole lot of love. Xander's going to be the most owned player probably this week. Victor Hovland, after a very good week last week, getting a lot of attention. So I will have Gabe's sources info off to the side here. Mostly agreeing with each other, being that Scotty and Xander in some way, form, or fashion are going to be the top 2 projected owned players. Gabe's source has Scotty slightly higher than Xander. Fantasy National has Xander slightly higher than Scotty. Either way, one of these 2 players, or both of these players, are going to be probably the top 3, maybe even top 2 in terms of projected ownership. The one thing that the 2 sources are disagreeing about is Victor Hovland. Per Fantasy National, Victor Hovland is going to be quite popular, and Gabe's source doesn't believe so. In fact, in the 10Ks, Gabe's source has Morikawa, the 3rd highest, which, Fantasy National is in agreement with somewhat as well. It's just members at Fantasy National are much more gravitating to Hovland than Morikawa. In the 10Ks, I am playing 4 players in here. Look, you can't play everybody, so I'm going to lose to the 3 players that I don't play if they play well. I'm going to play Scotty. I'm going to play Xander. I'm going to play Hovland. And I'm actually a little bit encouraged seeing that Hovland's ownership is not nearly as high per Gabe's source than it is at Fantasy National. I do believe last week, or in Hovland's performance last week, even though he is really bad around the green, talked about how I don't think around the green is really going to matter, even though I have 5% in the mixed condition model. He's number 1 off the tee the past 24 rounds. Number 1 off the tee. Top 10 in par 5s, top 5 and going low. I mean, he will go low. Good drives gained. He finds fairways, hits greens, just great ball striker. I really like Hovland. I will buy in after a very good St. Jude. So he's the 3rd 5-digit play or 10K play that I have. And the 4th, I'll go back to the well. I'll go back to Rory. I mean, I might not be as high on him as it suggests, being 2nd in my rankings, but the fact that he is one of the most unique options in the 10Ks at a course that should fit him pretty well. And we said that last week with TPC Southwind and the St. Jude. This course should fit him. I am a little bit worried about the irons. But he also played WGC Mexico very well in the 4 years that it was at Chapultepec. Talk about being able to go low. He can go low. His putter has been bad, but historically on this surface, he's actually been pretty good. And Rory is, right in the middle in terms of ownership, projected ownership. At least per Gabe's source, he's the second. He's actually in the middle here at Fantasy National as well. So I'm going to go back to the well. I'm going to be a little bit cautious with it just because I'm so high on Xander. I'm pretty darn high on Victor. Of course, Scotty. Scotty's going to be difficult just due to the pricing structure, but I'm going to make sure to have him. But I will go back to the well with Rory, which means I'm out on Hideki. I was out on him last week. He proved me wrong. So if he plays well again this week, I'll lose. But I can't call last week an aberration or a fluke. But I mean, he's actually one of the worst birdie or better getters when it's easy in this field. Immaculate ball striker, sure. He's not the best putter, and he's okay on this surface, but not great. So, if he plays well, I'll lose. Morikawa, I'm actually not all that high on. So this is a kind of an easier fade for me. And it has nothing to do analytically, because, he was fourth by the numbers. The ownership is high, but nothing prohibitive. Has a gut feeling. This is a gut feeling on Morikawa. This is kind of my bold fade, other than me avoiding an entire range, which I'll get to. But if I were to go any individual player, one of the more bold plays this week, or at least bold fades, is Morikawa. I'm just not playing him. I can't play everybody. I'm going to have Hovland. I'm going to have Rory, Xander, Scotty. Can't play everybody, so I'll take the chance on Morikawa going back-to-back weeks that are subpar, because he was pretty bad last week as well. And then Obear, unique. Probably the most unique option in the 10Ks, maybe other than Hideki. He has really, really struggled on this surface a lot. And these greens are pretty complicated. So that gives me some pause. Pretty darn good off the tee, but he just hasn't scored. I know he's third and birdies are better when it's easy, but he just hasn't scored lately. He has, for as much talent as he has, he just hasn't been, contending. So I don't have a strong feeling on Obear one way or the other. So it's a fade for me in that regard, because I really like Xander and I really like Hovland. And I want to make sure I play Rory, especially if he is indeed one of the more unique options in the 10Ks. So that's how I am approaching the 10Ks. I'm going to have plenty of these four, and I am full fading the other three. In a 50-man field, you just got to plant your flag. You got to take some chances. That's where I'm going to take my chances. Moving to the nines, it's Patrick Cantlay, Finau, Fleetwood, Burns, Horschel, Clark, Henley, and Sungjae. You see some of these players rate out really bad. Remember, there's only 50 players, so Sam Burns is near the bottom. Billy Horschel's, below field average. Cantlay and Finau getting a whole lot of attention per Fantasy National. Now, per Gabe's source, Cantlay's the most popular choice in the 9Ks, but not nearly to this level of ownership. So if that's the case, I kind of like Cantlay this week. I liked him a little bit last week, but I'm going to use some Cantlay. I think it's okay, but I was hoping he'd be a little bit more unique. I have some concerns with Tony Finau. Yes, the irons have been great, but much like Hideki, look at this. Birdies are better, especially when it's easy. In fact, recall to when we started the show, we looked at best performers and worst performers when it's been easy the past couple of years. Tony Finau actually has not been very good when it's been easy. He takes advantage of par fives, but also look at this off the tee. He's been pretty wayward lately, and this course will punish you for being wayward. We all know about his struggles with the putter, even though he is quite literally in the middle of the field this week in terms of his performance on Benton Poa Annua. These are complicated greens. I am concerned with Tony. I can't call it a full fade. I'm sure I'll have him once, maybe twice, but I'm going to be much less in terms of exposure to Tony Finau. Much less. I do have some concerns with Tony. Tommy Fleetwood, okay. Both sources are right around 15% on Tommy. He played Chapultepec pretty well. I don't know. It's difficult because there's a lot in the 10Ks I like, which kind of tells you the lineups I've been building. His irons are fine. He actually takes advantage of par 5 despite the fact that he doesn't have as much length as some of these others around him. Decent off the tee. Been very good on the surface, so that helps as well. I'm going to have some Tommy. I don't know how much yet, but I'm going to have some Tommy. Wyndham Clark is getting a whole lot of love because of the local connections. Makes a lot of sense. I can't fade him. I'm going to have some Wyndham Clark. Number 1 putter on Benton Poa Annua as well. You might not think that about Wyndham Clark, but he has been the number 1 putter on Benton Poa Annua, so make sure you're aware of that. I'm going to have him. I think he's going to play these par 5s well enough. I'm not worried about that. His irons are starting to get back into form. Wyndham Clark's at anywhere between 15 to 18%. So he's the second most projected owned player in the 9Ks, other than maybe Finau, if you want to believe Fantasy National. So I like Wyndham Clark. I'll be a little bit less on him because of all the ownership, but I like him. It's fine. I also have him in an outright, so I can afford to back off my DFS use of him because of the outright. The only other player in the 9Ks that I have any interest in is Sungjae, and a lot of that is due to the fact that he is so unique. I don't understand why he's... Well, I guess I do understand why he's this unique, because he hasn't been great lately, but, the guy scores. Like a lot of players we'll talk about lower in the price board, this guy just scores. He'll get birdies, he'll get eagles. Off the tee has been kind of suspect, but a 10 or even 12% Sungjae I would be interested in. Which means I'm not playing Russell Henley. This doesn't feel like a great fit. He's also been the worst putter on this surface. The worst. Doesn't take advantage of par 5s, or hasn't lately. So I got concerns with Henley. Out on Billy Horschel. He played Chapultepec well. So this is a little bit dangerous for me, but he's got a lot going on, and I think I heard earlier this week that he's been bothered by a little bit of a back issue that's been nagging at him for a little bit. Despite the fact that he's been playing well, anytime I have any injury concerns, especially in a small field like this, I'm just willing to avoid it. And then Sam Burns, I'm just completely out. So there's a look at the 9Ks. I want to like Cantley, but that's a lot of ownership. I am very, very concerned about Tony Finau, so I will only have him once or twice. Very concerned with Finau. I like Tommy. I like Clark, but his ownership, like Cantley, has creeped up. So really in the 9Ks, it's really kind of Tommy. Maybe some Sungjae because of his uniqueness. Moving into the 8s, Connors, JT, Tagala, Rye, Cam Young, Batia, Adam Scott, J-Day, Shane Lowry, and Seabez. Aaron Ryan, number one player, makes a lot of sense just because of how well he's been playing. I'm not necessarily that high on him, but he's also going to be very popular. It's also another reason why I'm not as high on him. I actually don't mind JT again. He played well at Chapultepec. He's played well at Memorial. So I don't mind JT, especially if he is indeed in this 10 to 12% range like Sungjae. Connors, he's generally like Lowry, better when it's more difficult. Just because he's such a good ball striker, you hope that he runs in a few putts. But when it gets to be real easy, his irons kind of get negated. So much like Tony Finau, I mean, for different reasons, I have legitimate concerns about Tony. I like Connors, but I think he just kind of gets past this week due to the fact that he's not a great putter, and his strength, accuracy, and particularly with the irons, kind of mitigated just because I think it's going to be easy. Tagala, no thanks. He has not played terribly well lately, and I'm really concerned with the fact that how wayward he has gotten with his driver. Talked about Rye. I really want to like Batia. I mean, a lot. But if you really subscribe to the Jack Nicklaus left to right ball flight, that is not Batia. Batia is a fader, but he's left-handed. So he's got the right to left. And that does not suit well for Jack Nicklaus's irons. So you've got some concerns there. I want to like him because he goes low. Really good off the tee, 19th. I know that's right off your screen, but top 20 and off the tee, accurate enough. The irons are okay. I want to like him, but this might not be the best fit for him. And he didn't necessarily play Memorial well either, so be aware of that. I do like the player though. Elsewhere in the 8s, like Lowry rated out well, but again, if I think this is going to be easy, I much prefer Lowry when it's difficult. He's a grinder. He will grind out his pars. That's not what you want here. You want to go low. You want eagles, lots of birdies. That's not Lowry's game. Not to mention the fact that it's his altitude. It's a difficult walk. He's not the slimmest, so you have some concerns there as well. So really, after Batia, I don't like much here at all. The low 8s, I don't want any part of. I know Lowry rates 8th, but I'm just completely out for a few of those reasons. I'll dabble in some of these players up here, like Connors. I'm sure I'll have like Finau once or twice, but I'm not all that confident in it. I kind of like JT. This week, so I might have some JT. I'm sure I'll have Rye, but I'm not nearly as high on him as the number one ranking would suggest. And I'm going to be less than 18% on Aaron Rye in terms of lineups. Again, I'll have him, but just not excited for it because he's going to be popular. He's going to be very popular. We move to the 7s. And we've talked about how there was a range that I was completely fading. Well, if I'm playing a lot of 10s, and I like a few players in the 9s, I talked about the 8s. If I'm playing so many players in the 10s, I got to play some 6s. Here it is. I am not playing a single player, not a single one, in the 7s. The entire 7K range is dead to me. I know some of these players rated out decent. Davis Thompson's in my top 10, but like the irons haven't been good. He hasn't hit a lot of greens or fairways. He has been 4th off the tee, 1st around the green, but doesn't give himself a lot of opportunities either. Past him, Fitz, no thanks. He's been pretty bad lately. Been on, He gets wayward, and this course will punish you. Bobby Mack. A lot of people have been liking Bobby Mack. I mean, I understand why, but you got to be in the fairway to take advantage of things. I can foresee him struggling this week. McCarthy's kind of interesting because if these greens really are as difficult and complicated as they seem, you want somebody that's a really good putter like McCarthy. In the 7Ks, I would be highest probably on McCarthy, maybe Brian Harman as well. And a lot of that helps too because of their uniqueness. Like, I don't want any part of Taylor Pendrith. I get it. Like, guy hits it a long way. He's good with the irons. He's generally a pretty good putter. But, 17.5% per Fantasy National. Less on Gabe's source, but still, no thanks. That's a fade. So I'm not playing a single player in the 7Ks. I would be interested in McCarthy and Brian Harman, but I'm just not building those kinds of lineups. So that means I'm playing a few players in the 6s. So I do have a few players that I want to mention to you all in the 6Ks. Now, per Fantasy National and per Gabe's source, there's quite a few players getting some attention. You see Max Grazerman per Fantasy National, 19%. That seems to be where most of Fantasy National seems to be going. And I like Grazerman. I do. 4th in par 5s, 3rd off the tee. I like Grazerman, but he's going to be popular. Be aware of that. Austin Eckroat, I like a lot. But he's going to be popular. And Gabe's source backs that up as well. I would be a little bit concerned on Eckroat because he's not a good putter. And it's, again, like the Denny McCarthy, like the Tony Finau, Denny McCarthy being good, Tony Finau being bad. If these greens are complicated, Eckroat's not a good putter. I could see him struggling. Eric Cole. I love Eric Cole. I'm going to play a chalky Eric Cole. I don't care, but he is very chalky. Be aware of that. Nick Dunlap getting a whole lot of attention as well. I like Dunlap. I think this is a good play, but he's popular, so be aware of that. Anywhere between 11.5% to maybe 13 to 14%. That's a lot for a 6K. So instead, I'm going to give you two players to maybe think about to get off the chalk that is running rampant down here. First is Tom Hoge. Tom Hoge, pretty unique, sitting at anywhere between 9 to 10%. Top 10 in irons, which, again, I think iron play is going to be very instrumental in who wins this week. I am quite worried about how wayward he gets, but, you're in the 6Ks for a reason. Some of these guys have some flaws. Tom Hoge will go low. He takes advantage of par 5s. And despite the fact that he's not a good putter, he's actually been okay on this surface. Okay. So take a look at Tom Hoge. I don't hate it. But the mad scientist play this week is Adam Hadwin. I love me some Adam Hadwin. And, you look at these top 3 metrics, it doesn't, nothing jumps off the page for you. I get it. Only top 30 in iron, so actually, a little bit less than field average or medium in this field. Good drives gained, 31st. But birdies are better, 31st. Really, it's on the putter. And I also go back to Chapultepec. He top 10'd Chapultepec. He's played well at Memorial. A lot of things just seem to line up for Adam Hadwin. And he's one of the more unique options in the 6Ks. So Adam Hadwin's the mad scientist play of the week. If he does not play well, I will lose. But look, in a 50-man field, you've got to plant your flag somewhere. So I will take a chance on Adam Hadwin. All right, let's start talking about lineups. We're going to start with tiers constructions and then move to classic lineups and our big GPPs. For those who play tiers contests, tier 1, Scotty, Xander, Rory. I want to take Rory based on the uniqueness, but my God, he is the most volatile play of these 3. Oof. I I'm going to say Xander, and I might change that depending on what other picks I take. I'll go with Xander just because I think he's the safest in this tier. I think he's got the highest floor. But if I feel like I'm taking too much chalk, I might switch off of that. But for right now, we'll go Xander tier 1. Tier 2, Hideki, Hovland, Morikawa, Obear, and Finau. Ugh. I guess give me Hovland. I know he's the most projected on player in classic lineups. Hopefully he's not that popular in tiers, or at least maybe Finau beats him a little bit. But I really don't like Hideki. This is a gut feeling on Morikawa. Obear probably fine, but he's struggled as of late. So give me Hovland. But we're already starting pretty chalky in tiers, so I might have to come off of Xander quickly. But tier 2, we'll take Hovland. Tier 3, Cantlay, Fleetwood, Burns, Horschel, and Henley. For me, it's probably between Cantlay and Fleetwood. I'll go Tommy. I'm okay with that. Cantlay's getting a lot of buzz, probably rightfully so, because he's playing well lately. But give me Tommy Fleetwood in tier 3. Tier 4, Wyndham Clark, Sungjae, Connors, JT, Tagala, Rye, and Young. JT's kind of interesting. Rye's probably the best play, but you can see he is one of the most popular choices in this tier, along with Wyndham Clark. Sungjae's kind of interesting as well. We will go with... yeah, I guess we'll go with JT in tier 4. Not in love with it. I would like to go Wyndham Clark or Rye, but I think we're too popular with Xander Hovland. So give me JT in tier 4. I'd rather go Rye or Clark, but here we are. Tier 5, Batia, Scott, Day, Lowry, Seabass, Davis, Thompson, Fitzpatrick. I mean, for me, it's just Batia. I do not like anybody else in this tier at all. And hopefully Davis Thompson gathers a lot of attention to bring Batia's tiers ownership down. Just give me Batia in tier 5. And then tier 6, Dietrich, Cole, Hoagie, Homa, Eckroat, Grazerman, and Davis. Well, Grazerman and Cole are going to be two of the more, and Eckroat, those three are going to be wildly popular in this tier. Cole, Eckroat, Grazerman. If you have a lot of confidence in Hoagie, go ahead. I don't know if I'm as confident in a tiers contest. I'll probably just take Eric Cole for the safety, or the perceived safety, because the guy scores. But it's pretty popular. So this tier's construction goes Xander in tier 1, Hovland in tier 2, Tommy Fleetwood in tier 3, hopefully getting quite a bit of uniqueness there. Tier 4 is Justin Thomas, again, hopefully getting a lot of uniqueness, but I'd rather take Clark or Rye. It's just too popular. Tier 5, Batia, no ifs, ands, or buts. I hate everybody else in there. Tier 6, I'll go with Eric Cole. It is quite popular, though. All right, let's move to classic lineups. Start building some lineups that we think we're going to see in our big GPPs and how we can maneuver around them. In these big GPPs, you have to decide or think, how many 6K plays do we think are going to be popular? You know, most of our fellow contestants are going to play at least one. Grazerman, Eckroat, Cole getting a whole lot. Maybe two. So with that, we'll go with Scotty. This very, very easily could be Xander, but we'll go Scotty. Hovland could be a reasonable second. Tony Finau's also getting a whole lot of attention. We'll go Finau. I like Hovland a lot. But you see, going these two sets you up at 7,000 per player. Not a whole lot of wiggle room. So if we move down here to the 6Ks, You know, Gabe's source is in agreement as well. Grazerman's the most projected owned player, so he's going to bottom this team out. Eric Cole getting a whole lot of attention. Dunlap's getting a lot of attention as well. Let's see. Taylor Pendrith, at least per Fantasy National, getting a lot of attention. Whoops. Taylor Pendrith. Let's see. Per Gabe source, Davis Thompson, maybe. Let's see. If we go by Fantasy National, this would be Eric Cole, which then puts Davis Thompson. So that's one potential lineup shell. Go Scheffler, Finau, a couple of sevens, and then double sixes. 115% cumulative ownership. This is going to be a pretty popular lineup, I would think. Another way that our fellow contestants could do this, maybe it's Bobby Mack with 68. Dunlap is 100 more. So I'm just highlighting the fact that this is another potential possibility with Dunlap, or maybe Zalatoris has been getting. Yeah, Zalatoris is the most or second most projected owned per Gabe source. Fantasy National members aren't as high on him, but he's been getting some attention as well, right at that 12%. So that's another possibility. Go Bobby Mack and Zalatoris. If our fellow contestants are only going 6K, we'll throw Eric Cole. Now let's go Austin Eckroyd into this one, just to mix it up. But they're going to be filling out a bunch in the sevens. So Taylor Pendrith, Bobby Mack, Davis Thompson, and then 86 is Rye. So if our fellow contestants aren't comfortable going double sixes with Scotty, then this would be the lineup that they're building. If our fellow contestants aren't going Scotty, let's say they're going Xander, it leaves them a lot more room that they don't have to go double sixes. They still probably are. We'll say Nick Dunlap and Grazerman, just to emphasize all the ownership. But this gives them a lot more room where they can go a 9, an 8, and a 7. You know, in the 9s would be Tony Finau, Patrick Cantlay, getting a lot of attention. In the 8s, it's Aaron Rye, trying to use other players, but really it's Aaron Rye, Adam Scott maybe. 76 is Bobby Mack. Maybe it's Pendrith, and they're leaving some money on the table. But again, well over 100% cumulative ownership. I mean, these are some pretty darn popular lineups and shells that we're looking at. So how are we going to maneuver around this? Well, if you're really willing to be bold, even I'm not this crazy or this bold, but if you're willing to be really bold, if you build a balanced lineup, you're going to be unique this week. Like if you start with a Tommy, then work your way down to maybe like a Wyndham Clark or a Sung Jae, Justin Thomas. You can even throw Aaron Rye into this. You're starting to run out of money here real quick, but just highlighting the fact that how unique you can get. Let's do Tommy, Sung Jae. You can still throw in Rye into this, but this is where I quickly don't like these lineups because I just don't like the sevens. I mean, for me, I would do Brian Harmon and Denny. 82 is Jason Day. No, thank you. Adam Scott wouldn't be so bad, but you'd have to come off of Rye or Sung Jae to get him. Like, if you go Justin Thomas here, like Adam Scott is fine, Batia. But I just don't have a whole lot of confidence in this lineup. You're ignoring all of the 5 digits, the top end of the price board. Like, Harmon and McCarthy are still pretty darn speculative. You're very unique. I will give you that. You're very, very unique if you're willing to build a balanced lineup. I'm just not doing it this week. I can't get there. So instead, this will lead into my answer to the poll question. I am leaning heavily into the 6Ks. And there is several ways you can go about it. If you're doing 2 6Ks, which as of right now is the vote getter, all 3 votes are in the 2 double 6K lineups. Depending on who you're using, you're actually not going to be all that unique. Dunlap, not very unique. Will Zalatoris is not very unique. Eric Cole is getting a whole lot of attention. Eckroat and Grazerman getting a whole lot of attention. That's why I highlighted Hoagie and Hadwin to help you maybe get off some of that chalk. But I am not afraid to put 2. I'm not afraid to put 3 6Ks in my lineups. We're going to start with 2. I'll show you the real mad scientist lineup at the end. But let's go with two 6s here. We'll go Hoagie and Eric Cole. I know Cole's very popular, but I really like Eric Cole. This allows us to do a Scotty if we want. We don't have to, but I've been trying to find a little bit of greed in my lineups, even with a Scotty. So if we go Scotty, like I've been trying to go like Scotty Tommy. I know it's difficult. I don't like a whole lot in the 7s. But this is where some of those 8s come in. You know, if we go maybe Scotty, Wyndham Clark maybe. If I could spell his name. Wyndham Clark. Justin Thomas, Aaron Rye. Then you can go into the 7s at your preferred, player. Justin Thomas, Akshay, 76 again is Bobby Mack, McCarthy, Harmon. This is acceptable to me. I'm not in love with it because I'm trying to get as many players in the 9s and 10s as possible. But it's okay. You're also pretty darn unique. 80% cumulative ownership versus, the Scotty lineup that was chalky was 115 or something ridiculous. So, I mean, it's possible. But the lineups that I'm building this week, I'm going ham. I'm going crazy. I'm going 3 or more. To me, I'm going Eric Cole, Grazerman, and I'm helping it out a little bit with Hadwin. I know these 2 are extremely popular, but I'm going Hadwin, and I'm hoping that the 666 is the unique route this week, and let's have fun. I mean, I'm going to emphasize the uniqueness here. I'm going to go with Rory, Victor. That allows me 9,800. I can take a Cantley. I can take a Tommy. I'll throw in Cantley, just even with the higher ownership. It's a little bit high, 102%, but I'm hoping that the sum or the lineup shell is the uniqueness, going 666. We can go Rory, Victor, Cantley, Rory, Victor, Tommy. That brings it down a little bit. We can go Xander, Tommy, Wyndham Clark, and we can even, throw in a 7 if we wanted. But I'm getting all of the greed up top. I'm going superstars, super scrubs most of the time. I will sneak an 8 up there occasionally. I will sneak a Batia in a lineup. I will put Rye in a couple lineups. I'll do Justin Thomas because he's unique. But I'm trying to fit as much up top because I have a lot of confidence in the 6Ks. Eric Cole, Eckrup, Grazierman. These guys are popular, but I'm confident they'll play well. Tom Hoagie. And the Mad Scientist play Adam Hadwin. So really, the Mad Scientist lineup is Rory because of the uniqueness, Victor, Tommy, and then the triple six. That's the Mad Scientist lineup this week with the Mad Scientist play. That's going to be it for the show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, watching, listening, supporting the channel, liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. I want to thank P for jumping into chat. Been a long-time supporter of the channel. I can't say it enough. I very much appreciate that. Reminder that I'm going to be over in Gabe's Substack chat shortly after the show this evening. We're going to continue our DFS talk over there. You really are missing out if you're not a subscriber to his article. It is free to subscribe to his article. So make sure you're doing that and show him some support. Follow him over on social media. That's where I'll be shortly after the show. And then be on the lookout for my betting card and my top player usage and the lineups that I play for the BMW. That'll come out later this evening, maybe even early morning over on X. Thanks again for all the support. For all the wagers you've made this week for the BMW Championship. For all the DFS contests you play this week for the BMW Championship. For this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.